Day in the neighborhood. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? Would you be my neighbor? Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Power to the People. I am glad to be in Buffalo with great weather this week. I mean, really, really good weather for Buffalo. I was able to power wash. Oh, that's his phone. I'm like, what? I was able to, huh? Oh, power wash my garage and do stuff outside. And those of you who might be listening to us from another location like the South, you all kind of enjoy this all the time, but we're enjoying it up here. So, welcome to another edition of Power to the People. Today, we're talking in a little while about what some call generational wars. I don't know, it's called generational wars. How I'm going to go through all of the generations that have, the years, a little bit about them, a little bit about what they experienced, because we were talking about this in the office, and we are just talking about the difference in generations. And I mean, I'll get to the chase. I think every generation needs all generations. But when generations change, there's changes. There are always these kind of I don't know the word, maybe tension sometime if the generation before doesn't respect the generation after, and the generation after doesn't respect the generation before. And so we're going to talk about today. I got a young man here. We're going to be talking about this. We just kind of sitting around the office last week, and I said, well, let's take it to the radio. And so we're going to see who is in the room is Baby Boomer, who in the room is Generation X, Y, and right now we're in Generation Alpha.
Oh, are we?
That's what I'm reading online. Now, I'm not saying it's real, but I never heard anybody say it. From the Buffalo Challenger, and I keep saying this, I got to get a criterion. I want to, Buffalo Challenger, the family of the young lady who was involved in the Uber on the 33. We're not right, by the way. All of us in here are like really tired. We had church late last night. We work all day. I'm trying to get myself settled down for the telethon this weekend, for the services. So we're all tired. We're all really tired. Some days we're real silly. And I think we're silly right now because everybody's sleepy.
A little bit, just a little bit.
Just a little bit. So the family has now retained Ben Crump in this situation. I'm going to read a little bit out of it. You can see the Challenger online or get it at most stores in the community. While Cheektowaga police are ruling the death of 21-year-old Sharday Nunez on 33 accidental, her family believes otherwise and has taken action. Charmaine Collins, Sharday's mother, has confirmed that they are working with the law office of attorney Ben Crump, a nationally recognized firm that specializes in civil rights and wrongful death cases. The Crump firm is also representing some of the families of the Tops Jefferson shooting. I'm going to skip a little bit. They talk about the incident. They said it seemed on February 8th, the day of the incident, Charmaine last spoke with her daughter around 1 p.m. Sharday was at work. Did not seem out of the ordinary. She asked her mother to check on her apartment because of property owners going in and out. She was leaving work, headed home at the time the tragic incident occurred. As reported last week, investigators claim Nunez climbed out the back window of the Uber she was taken home from her job while it was moving and fell onto the highway before she was hit by another car. Quote, she took Uber every day, Monday through Friday, recalled her mother. She worked at Capital Management and at weekends at Foot Locker. Her daughter, however, was also cautious about her rides, added her mom. If she walked up to a car and there was more than one person besides the driver, she would cancel the ride even if she had to be late for work. skipping. At the time of the interview, Charmaine's information regarding the case was limited as the information gathered by police had not been released to her. Now, this is interesting because we just talked about that last week, and I keep saying I think if they're more transparent, there would be more people who would at least be a little at ease, but it just seems really strange.
Really strange.
That a woman would just decide to crawl out of the car on the 33.
While moving, so that's the thing. Is there what would make one move out of a moving vehicle on a highway? Was there a conversation with the driver? Was she on the phone?
And that's some of the rumor.
Yeah,
right.
So,
You said you heard that recently.
Yeah, I've heard some rumors that she was telling the driver to stop, and he didn't stop. So she felt that she needed to. The only way for her to get out the vehicle was to get out on the 33. But like I said, not knowing the reason, I don't know.
Right. According to this article, it says that the driver gave several statements. The first statement was, I don't know how she fell out. I don't know how she fell. I hit a speed bump and she fell out.
Huh?
Yeah, that's weird. The second statement, I don't know when she left out the vehicle. I couldn't see her in my rear view because I'm taller and she's short.
Okay, now we're getting a little.
Yeah. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but whenever was there a speed bump on the 33? 33 ain't even, it's not even raggedy like with potholes and all that. It's paved perfectly almost.
And then who says I don't know when they got out and I didn't see the person because I'm taller? Like that doesn't even make sense.
I'm trying to be taller in my mind and have somebody shorter in the back. It just, when that door opened, or the window. No, she went through the window.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't blame the family. I'm telling you, I just don't blame the family for wanting clear answers. Why did this girl go out of the window, and where is the speed bump that he hit?
Yeah.
So Crump is involved in that one. A couple things in here. I just wanted to highlight that. And there was one other thing that I wanted to highlight. Oh, we talked about Beyonce, and it's in here this week. This is what it was. AKG, and I haven't been over there to the art museum, but they have an exhibit that may pull me over there. And it responds to the tragic slaying of 10 members of Buffalo's black community on May 14th. Before and After, again, features new paintings, poetry by artists Julia Bottoms, Tiffany Gaines, and Julian Hainsworth. The exhibition will be on view free of admission charges in the Buffalo's AKG M&T Gallery from March 8th. So starting, March 8th, today, right? To September 30th. So I think that that's something to take a look at. I think that they have a few of the pieces have been in the paper and other things, and it looks very, very interesting. Before I go to the topic, did you hear the State of the Union last night?
I did watch it.
That's why I'm sleeping.
Before, I was getting ready to say before dozing off. I actually fell asleep during the Republican response. But I was impressed with.
I was too.
With Sleepy Joe. 9 o'clock gets a little late for.
You're not right for that.
But I will say he gave me everything that I expect out of Uncle Joe.
I thought it was a tremendous speech.
Yeah.
I thought that his comebacks when the Republicans would kind of boo, and he was like really on it last night. Because when he turns like, oh, so you don't like that? Whatever he said, and I was like, oh, shucks.
Or even when he was like, oh, you're not supporting it?
Right.
Send me the bill.
Right. Let's go. Like
Exactly.
he was on it. He was forceful. When he talks about Ukraine, when he talks about other things, I thought it was a tremendous speech especially, I just didn't know what to expect.
Absolutely.
I thought that there were some very disrespectful moments. For instance, you're not supposed to have campaign stuff in the chambers, and you have Marjorie there with the Make America Great sign. But in fairness, it was a campaign speech too.
Absolutely.
He referred to his predecessor without saying the name.
Yes.
Over and over and over
Absolutely.
and over. So,
But now I will say, being from Delaware, so of course I know a lot more of Joe Biden and his politics, and that is his element, being in a bipartisan room and being able to talk to both sides. That's what he built his career on. So
well, the closing was classic.
yes, that was a sermon.
Oh, wait.
No, I did
Which
say. Well, his closing was a sermon, but I did say somebody's definitely going to preach. This is a setback for a comeback.
Ooh,
Somebody definitely.
but when he
Sunday.
talked about he said, he came into Congress in his 20s.
29.
He said, I came and they told me I was too young.
Yep.
Now they tell me I'm too old. I was like, whoa, shucks.
Yeah,
So-
that was good.
So that's a great lead into today's topic about this generational war. And last night I preached a sermon about where the psalmist says it broke his heart when he looked at when he remembered how things used to be.
Yeah.
And we were last week sitting in the office and decided to tackle this subject about generations. Now, I'm going to read to you what I found. I don't know if it's accurate. I'm just going to read to you the generations now that were named. And I didn't. Now, some people give the generation 1901 to 1927. It's just called the greatest generation. This generation lived through the Great Depression, went on to fight World War II. 1928 to 1945 is called the silent generation, in some people's opinion. The silent generation famously got their name for being so conformist that they were silent through the McCarthy era when the fear of communism swept the country. During this era, kids were expected to earn their way through life using a strong work ethic.
I believe that because then wherever the next generation, that's where their belief came from.
Baby boomer generation,
that's what I thought was
1946 to 1964. Now, I was born in 64. I don't really consider myself a boomer, but let me read what it says. Generation Z may think of baby boomers as their out-of-touch grandparents, as in, okay, boomer, but this generation actually had a wild youth we often don't talk about. Boomers are named for the population boom that occurred after World War II.
Right.
And many young people of this generation defied their parents, protested the Vietnam War, and created the Summer of Love. Boomer parents notably redefined parenting by being the first generation to look at their kids' perspective of growing up, and they started the concept of having family meetings. Now, like I said, I'm on the edge of a boomer, but we ain't never had no family meeting in my house.
But you know what, though? Now that actually hearing it, that makes a lot of sense because, like, even for you, you would have turned 18 in 82, but you would have grew up through the 60s and 70s, which was a lot of what they were referring to. But that actually does make a lot more sense about how parenting changed with that generation because sometimes the problem is when you think of generations, you think of the time you're born, but not the time that you were an adult and progressed through life. So that makes a lot more sense.
Generation X is 1965 to 1980. So often dismissed as the slacker generation, Generation X lives through the AIDS epidemic, MTV culture, and a shifting landscape that would give rise to LGBTQ rights. Generation X parents were the first to use helicopter parenting styles. Unlike their boomer parents who famously let their kids, maybe I'm a boomer, stay out until the streetlights came on. Generation Xers have a tendency to be far more involved with their children's social and educational development. That's 65 to 90. Now we get
The 65 to 90?
how the heck did this take me to Amazon? What the heck?
Done clicked on an
All right.
ad.
Millennials, which would be you, right? 1981 to 86.
To 96.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, to 96. Millennial generation lived through 9/11, Remember when Amazon only sold books?
Sure
And
does.
are also the first generation to know a childhood both with and without the internet. Now, that's not true for you because you at the end. All you knew was the internet, right?
Kind of.
And what year were you
bring that
born?
mic to you.
95.
95. Okay. So I remember when there was no internet.
Me too.
I remember I still have my same AOL account.
Yes, you do.
You got mail.
It doesn't do that anymore, but it used to be.
Yeah. Yeah, that dial-up. Oof.
While boomers may accuse millennials of being self-centered and impatient due to their excessive use of technology, this generation has proven to actually be incredibly community-oriented and environmentally conscious, which are traits that are being picked up by their children. When it comes to parenting, here we go. Millennials are more likely than prior generations to encourage their children to live as their authentic selves and are leading the movement in helping gender nonconforming kids to be happy with who they are, points out Kyle. And this comes off of a very, very popular, it used to be called Parents Magazine, but it's just called Parents now. To be happy with who they are. Some millennial parents who were helicoptered over in their youth are taking on a freer approach
we getting our
to
generation.
parenting. Speaking of, my father just walked in, allowing their children to explore and create constant structure or supervision. We agree? Mm-hmm. Here we go with this generation. No, we're not even there yet. Then you got Generation Z. Generation Z kids are the first to be born into a world where they know nothing else besides constantly being connected to one another, albeit through phones, screens, and tablets. However, like millennials before them, Gen Zers are often environmentally conscious, inclusive and accepting of others, and extremely politically aware, despite many of them not being of voting age. You could disagree? Okay. Then there is something, according to Parents Magazine, from 2010 to 2024 called Generation Alpha. Now, I really haven't heard this.
heard that.
But I'll read what they say. Kids born between 2010 and 2024 are a part of Generation Alpha. Generation Alpha is the first generation of kids who will never know a time when social media didn't exist. True. And they are far more tech savvy than any generation previously, which is a powerful tool that can change humanity in a myriad of positive ways. It may be too soon to peg the alphas as this or that based on how little we know. However, there are a few things we understand. Some Gen Alphas are the first to be born amid COVID. They were diverse. They're more diverse than any other generation, and they're more likely to be in a single-parent household. Like the generations that came before them, every passing year will shape the culture. Now, let's get down to it since we know the age groups. So we have in this room a boomer. We have in this room, what are you? A Z.
Millennial.
A millennial. And Mark, where did you fall in?
I think I'm a millennial too. No.
81.
Yeah, I'm a millennial. I'm 84.
Okay, so millennials, he's more on the younger side than you.
Yes.
And we were talking about, when I brought you on, his thoughts of how things we should do. I was like, that ain't important. and I had to let go, not let go. I had to adjust.
Yeah.
And now I have to admit that there are things that he brought to the table and continue to bring to the table that I go, okay, all right, I get it.
Right.
And it has attracted an audience that I might not have attracted before. Well, we've always attracted this kind of diverse audience here. However, I do believe that helps. But there seems to be a war sometimes. Not with him and I, but I'm talking about with the generations. So you have the millennials who think the boomers are out of touch. You have boomers who think the millennials just don't get it and can't sustain what the boomers have laid out. What's your thoughts?
I mean, I think it go hand in hand.
Uh,
I'll go for example. I did asphalt a couple summers ago. So me and my partner would think things will work faster doing it our way, but our boss, he had more experience than us. So when he would tell us to do something, we would want to do it our way, but not knowing why he was having us do it,
Yes.
the opposite way. So it's like sometimes it's like you guys are right, sometimes we were right, but
Right.
I think with a lot of older people, they don't respect that. Sometimes I get in a lot of situations where I'm like arguing with somebody because they're just not understanding, what I'm saying. But we're saying the same thing.
Right.
So it's like it goes hand in hand.
what do you think, Mark?
I think sometimes there is just the language barrier. That's probably the bigger thing. It's just like you said, we're saying the same thing, but we're saying it two different ways. We have the same goal, but we're trying to articulate it two separate ways. I do think, like I said, I think I said last week, and when we started this conversation, I'm that bridge group. So I spent most of my childhood and teenage years hanging with nothing but baby boomers.
Okay.
So that's who I got my mentoring from. That's everything I learned from. But I'm not too far away from this is how we can do it with the technology. This is how we can do it, doing it a new way, because not like you preached last night, not every old way is the sustainable model, but there's things we need to learn from that way to build upon where we're trying to go next.
I totally agree. I mean, I've heard so many people, especially millennials and Zs, it's our time.
Yeah.
As if the people who built the foundation are not needed.
Absolutely.
Right? So I'm the owner of the station, Sheila. We're the same age. We went to high school together. So to say that would be like, oh, we don't need a Sheila anymore.
No.
Because we're gonna take over. But here's the question: can you sustain it?
Right.
Because I did some research, and according to CNBC, Generation Z and millennials are leading what's called the Big Quit. Why nearly 70% plan to leave their jobs. This is a generation that doesn't, according to research, doesn't get a job and like, I'm staying here. This is where I want to build.
Oh, trust me, I know that.
And even in my day, I remember when I was at the post office, and my father just walked in a few minutes ago. And when I said I was leaving the post office to pastor a church, everybody thought I was crazy. They're like, what? And this was the answer. You got a good job.
Good job, retirement,
Right.
benefits, yeah.
But still, I only had a few jobs. I mean, except as a kid, I had different jobs. But as an adult, I've only had a couple jobs. I was in the Air Force, got out of the Air Force, and I had little jobs. But then I went to the post office, I taught school, and I was at True Bethel. That was it.
Right.
So for me, with my parents, that's a lot. I only knew my dad to work at one job, and I only knew my mom to work at one job. And there wasn't that moving around. So the question is, can the Generation Zs and millennials sustain? Because a lot of times they'll quit.
Oh, yes, we will.
It's the big quit, they call it.
Absolutely. And for me, I've definitely been that way. I think my resume, if I put every job, would be at like 5 pages.
Wow.
Because it is kind of that move. Like my supervisor, we were driving around doing some site visits yesterday, and we went to one of the bridges, and he was like, yeah, this was my first job in 1984. And I'm like, no, in 90-something. And I was just like, oh, I was 7.
Wow.
And he's still working, but now, he's now over that division. And, now when you start talking about, can we get a generation of people that's going to stay in a position?
And that's the difficult part.
For 30 years? Absolutely not. Because even in my role, I don't plan on being there 25 years.
So that's a problem. I mean, let me say, I shouldn't just go to that's a problem.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a problem?
It's like yes and no.
Okay.
I see a lot of successful business owners like my age nowadays. But I don't know. I don't see somebody being at a job for like 20 years, how they used to. I don't see that with my age.
Yeah, and that, so now because with your age, just like when I was your age, I didn't look down the road at my retirement.
No.
I didn't look down the road at I'm going to keep this job. And so I look at people who retired with a much larger pension than mine, who worked a job for 30 years.
Yeah.
30 years at one job, and they were fine. Now it's almost like we're being told, well, this generation, you looking for something else. You look, and if they get mad on a job, or if it's not, I'm not in my space, my head space.
Right.
It's like you're gone.
Well,
so it's so difficult.
But I think employers have also did that to us too in the business community, because once I get to 3 years of experience, I'm worth more to another company than I am with my current one.
I agree.
So I think at the end of the day, it's also like, do I stay here and keep getting 2% increases for cost of living, or do I take the $25,000 jump and support my family over here? So I do think some of these socioeconomics have also fueled that.
But will the socioeconomics be sustainable? Because now if I've worked at 10 different jobs and I don't have time in at any of them, and we don't look at, you're going to be 60 one day.
Oh, absolutely.
You're going to be 60 one day. But if you say that, it's like, nah, I got to do me. That's the saying. I got to do me. Hey, we got to go and pay the bills. I'm going to come over to the station. I hope somebody's right there ready to go. I'm trying to make sure I get there at 12:30. We're going to pay the bills in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
When it comes to something as personal as your clothes, you need to deal with somebody you can trust. That's why so many people turn to Hobson's Dry Cleaning, conveniently located in the heart of the community at 874 East Delavan at the corner of Wyoming.
When you take your clothes to Hobson's, you can trust that they'll be ready on time.
You can trust that your whites will be white.
You can trust that you'll always get a fair price and service with a smile.
You can even trust that you won't have to get out of your car if you don't want to. Hobson's has a drive-through window for your convenience.
Trust is what it's all about at Hobson's Dry Cleaning.
Hobson's Dry Cleaning, your one-stop dry cleaners serving the community for over 30 years at 874 East Delavan at the corner of Wyoming. Call 891-8298. That's 891-8298.
Brian K. Lewis Funeral Home has 3 locations to serve you in Buffalo: 347 Peckham, 2258 Bailey Avenue, and Providence Memorial Chapel at 1275 Sycamore. Brian K. Lewis Funeral Homes offers traditional services, and they have services for all faiths. And at Brian K. Lewis Funeral Homes, they have air-conditioned parlors and chapels. Financing is available, as is limousine service. At those difficult moments in your life, Brian K. Lewis Funeral Homes is available where you are with counseling services. Call toll-free 877-885-7734. That's 877-885-7734. Or locally, 845-5545. Brian K. Lewis Funeral Homes. We are here to serve you, here to serve this present age. Call today, toll-free, 877-885-7734. Or email info@brianklewisfuneralhome.com.
All right, from Business Insider, it says, welcome, and this was from February 23. Welcome to Generation Quit. For the last 2 years, it seems everyone has been quitting their jobs. Gen Z, who bore the brunt of early 2020 layoffs and job losses, led the way. Now Gen Z is suffering from lack of mentorship, lack of tenure, and stability at a pivotal point in their careers. The first time, this person who writes the article says, first time a close friend at work quit, I was heartbroken. The next time I was rattled. After the 4th or 5th, I knew the drill.
Absolutely.
Of course, as a 20-something, I knew my work friends would move on someday, but I, like many others, were unprepared for the onslaught of resignations. It reminded me of what teachers would say on the first day of AP history class. Look to your left, now look to your right. By the end of the year, one of these won't be here. Mm-hmm. The cascade of quits over the last 2 years created a generative machine. workers see others quitting, then they quit in turn. Short-staffed companies work the remaining employees harder, leading them to quit.
Yep.
Is there a lack of mentorship?
I think so.
And okay, why?
I think my generation and the ones younger, they have to be willing to like receive stuff from older people.
Yeah. Because I hear people saying, especially in the church, we use this fathers moniker, and they say, church ain't got no fathers no more, and the father's not there. And every time I hear it, it makes my skin crawl because I disagree that there are no fathers. I do believe that the fathers of the church sometimes are not ready to be fathers, right?
Well, that's where I was getting ready to go.
Yeah. So, but I do believe that those, because I was talking to Superintendent Lowe last weekend, and he said, whatever he calls me, D or whatever, he said, we are the fathers now. And I said, yeah, and I went kicking and screaming.
Yep.
Part of the reason, and I don't think this is generational, I think it's personal, is that I'm kind of an introvert. People think that I'm really public. I'm really not. But those who allow me to mentor, I do. But this is where it messes up for me. I'm not going to follow up. I'm not going to chase you down.
Right.
You say I really want to get in. I really want to see how you do this. All right, then come on. But I'm not the one that's going to call you going, hey, I'm doing this now. Hey, I'm doing that now, So that's the difficult.
Well, I was getting ready to say, you are definitely one, you more teach by example. So you have to, we used to say it back home, you have to learn even when the mentor is not teaching. So sometimes you just have to be in the room. Sometimes you just have to watch. Sometimes you just have to see and do, because like you said, you're not calling saying class is in session.
Absolutely.
But class is always in session.
Yeah, but I think that's where the disconnect then comes, because then it feels like, they're not out here mentoring us.
Right.
But what has been difficult, I think, for my generation is the mentee has to be menteeable, has to be trainable, has to not just come in with this is how it is.
I think like my generation, we're impatient. So like when we get into something, we're looking for it to like, we're looking to see results really, really quick. Like use the gym, for example. Everybody want to go to the gym.
Yep.
But it take a while for results.
Absolutely.
To come in. So most people quit. Most people pay a gym membership and don't even go to the gym every month.
I agree. That's why the gym is making all the money and they can do low rates.
It's a situation like that.
I do agree that I think this generation wants fast riches.
Absolutely.
And they want it as easy as possible. And then they, then they look at my generation that came up with, you got to get a job and you got to work that job. And even my generation wasn't as strong as my parents' generation on getting a job, prepare to retire.
And I was getting ready to say, I think the bigger struggle is there's things like I saw my grandparents do, and I can see where I'm like, they never taught me. I saw it, but they never taught me.
Yeah.
Like managing finances. My grandmother did all the books.
Yeah.
But when she passed, everyone was kind of like, how do you do the household books? Because
Right.
she did that by herself. So there's things that didn't get passed down. But I do think that we need that conversation. And I think sometimes we get caught up in the father or the mother or relationship or the mentee-mentor relationship. Sometimes we just need conversation.
Yeah.
Because, I might want it quick, or it's not the failure, but because I think parents also get into I don't want my kids to suffer like I did. So we give the kids everything. And then when they grow up, they're like, everything came like this.
Absolutely.
All I did was say it and it showed up.
Absolutely.
Instead of making it work. Like my son wants a pair of Jordans. And I said, well, when daddy gets his first pair, then we can talk about you getting yours. Or and they laugh whenever it's an expensive gift. I'm like, how much you putting on it?
Right.
And it's because I have to work to get mine.
Right.
So I think if we don't instill that, then we lose that generation by generation.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember, there's no paper. They're paper men now. You got to be grown to do the paper because you got to drive. But paper boys. I remember when I was younger. I mean, first of all, I got a job right when I got my working papers.
Right.
It was. I want to say the same day. I was so happy I got off the bus. I went in the Niagara Lutheran Home. I filled out an application. I'm walking down the street, and they come out and say, "Hey, come back, come here," and I ended up working. I've worked I don't know if I've ever received unemployment. Maybe for a minute when I got out of the service. I've always, and I did jobs that sometimes this generation is like, I'm not doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was a security guard. What was I securing? I was a I remember, listen, I was a security guard. I was an ambulance dispatcher. I did whatever I had to do to make sure that my children had food. Well, my child at that time, I had one, that they had food. Now it's like, I can hear people, I ain't doing that job.
Oh, absolutely.
You ain't doing that job. What do you mean you're not doing that job?
Or get a job and be like, I'm not. They get hired and say, I'm not doing this. Like,
Yep, I ain't doing
crazy.
it, and go somewhere else. And you're like, wait a minute, you just got a job. You had a job, and you not doing it because they doing this on the job. They doing that. Every job you get is going to be something.
And then get mad when a new American does it or somebody else that gets the job. Hey, listen, like somebody's got to do the job and work.
Well, here's the funny thing. So you have people complaining about who owns the delis and all that. I've heard that for a decade. What most of our young people, they're not working in the deli.
If you didn't sell it, we wouldn't be in the situation.
They're not working in the deli. And so I think it's so important. Tim Newkirk says, great topic. He says microwave generation. That's true.
It is.
Now, that's really a way to put it, because your generation, although now we got air fryers, is more likely to put something in the microwave. Mm-hmm. And my generation, I use the microwave, but we talking about in kind of thought and in action. I'm
Stove
more of an air
oven.
fryer and oven. That's where it is. Don Trotter says, yes, Ray, they don't want to receive it. So now you got this disconnect and almost this war, because even when, as an elected official, I would hear people saying, we young people we gonna take over. It's our time. And it's like, is it your time or is it everybody's time who's alive? And Joe Biden is that example.
Absolutely.
But here's the crazy thing. You got people saying Joe Biden is too old. Donald Trump is almost...
He's a year younger.
They're neck and neck.
Yeah.
They're neck and neck. But does it mean that Joe Biden or Donald Trump shouldn't be running for elected office because of their age? I disagree with this whole kind of... If mentally they can't, that's one thing. You shouldn't be the president if mentally
Absolutely.
you can't handle the football.
And first of all, people still say that Ronald Reagan, when he left office, was almost 82. So we gotta stop forgetting our history. And I think that's sometimes like a part of that generational gap too. Sometimes all that generation before you person wants you to know is this is not the first time we've been at these train tracks.
Right.
And so please hear me. Like, I can support you, but it's not the first time we've been here, and this is how we crossed the last time.
Now, go ahead.
And it's like, knowledge. They say knowledge is power.
Yes,
So
it is.
like, a lot of times, so it's like reverse what you said about us. A lot of times you would say something and I'll be like, but then I'll see later down the road, like why you said, something like that. But it's just knowledge is power.
Yeah, and I think putting both of those, what has been the success story here is putting both of those together.
Absolutely.
And respecting both sides. And so I'll talk for my generation. A lot of times we just say to do things, and then when another generation says, well, maybe we should look at it like this, we may shut down because, and that's what I would preach last night, because it's been that way.
Absolutely.
Why we need new cameras?
Yeah.
Why do we need to upgrade? And then people are trying to explain to you because I remember, we still stream our entire service, but I think both of you kind of talked about, we need to take clips of it because people are not watching whole services. I would have never come up with that. I didn't fight that. There's other things I have fought. And then later came to Jesus about it.
Well, I was getting ready to say, I remember the whole camera conversation. I'm like, we need to be HD. You were like, for what? Hey, blah, blah. I need to get people in the church. This was the whole argument. And then you went out of town and watched service, and you were like, oh, my God, order what you need.
I did. I looked at that. I was like, "Ooh, this worse than security cameras. What are we doing here? Why are we looking like this?"
Yeah.
But it does take humility on both parts,
Yes,
and I think
absolutely.
that's where we get lost, because my generation, we think we know it all, and X's and they and Z's, they think they know it all, and they think they know more, and we think we know more, and we at times don't get to that point. And I think any successful business, any successful church, any successful organization, to sustain, you're going to have to you got to work together.
Absolutely.
But I think it becomes some of people in my generation are afraid to let go because they and I talked about this last night, they're emotionally attached to stuff.
Absolutely.
So I can go in and say something to my age group here at the church. Rayshawn has to build a relationship. Well, all of us do to be leaders.
Absolutely.
You got to build a relationship, but it's still taken a little differently when it comes from you and it comes from Deacon Swain or it comes from me,
absolutely.
right? For somebody my age, it's like, well, the kid don't know what he's talking about. And, the kid is halfway running the place. And at the end of the day, they see the results, but they can't get over themselves. I think about, denominations. Generally in denominations, those denominations that do not embrace newness and change,
Are
they
dying.
suffer.
Dying.
They suffer so much, and then they just blame it that people don't want to come. And that's not always true. You don't use them, you lose them. Somebody else will pick them up. And at the end of the day, I think that, and I can only talk about Buffalo and the surrounding areas. Somebody asked me the other day, with all of the building that has gone on, with all of the construction, how many black millionaires have been made? And I just kind of stared into space.
Yeah.
Part of that is because I think, just what you said, people your age want quick money, but don't want to take the time to be mentored and figure, and some of that mentoring may not come from people that look like us.
Oh, of course not.
It may not.
Of course not.
I think it takes a cross culture
Yes.
of mentoring and learning, so that because there are areas that our young people should be making dough with, but it's just not happening yet. And so you got a place like Western New York where, and I always talk about this, where it's easier to say you a sellout, where it's easier to say you Illuminati, but everybody else, the people across Maine and people over, way out Maine,
Clarence, yeah.
they teaching their kids.
Oh, absolutely.
And this is why I tell people the difference, and don't get mad at me, I'm just saying. I know, cannabis is legal, all that. The difference between those kids out in Clarence Central and kids on the east side is that those people have connections. They're going to get a job.
Oh, absolutely.
If they don't pass, they ain't even got to take a drug test. They're going to drug test us, so be careful.
Or are they working for their dad or their
Working
dad's
for
friends?
their dad or working in the business, working. Yeah, this is so. It ain't. It's a difference.
Because I was going to say, you remember the meeting that birthed the Opportunity Bus.
Yes.
And you remember the person who said, I won't say the name.
Yeah.
Said, remember who said, we have to do something about the marijuana because even my son couldn't get a job.
Yep.
But his son is doing very well.
I don't say a word. That's why I say we can celebrate. People can celebrate that if you want to, but at the end of the day, we got to know that we are different. We and if we don't really get our generations together, because my dad's generation, where like you said, your grandmother didn't teach you certain things. I was an only kid, so I was the only one to learn the certain things. And so I was taught about money management. I was taught about my credit. I was taught about all those type of things. My parents only had one car most of our life, most of my life. When they got two, I was like, whoa.
Oh, they stepping up.
We stepping up. But I remember saying to my mother, or to my father, overheard me saying that we were middle class. My father said, no, we not. We poor. Now, you can act like we middle class if you want to. He said, we are poor. It broke my heart. It broke my heart,
Oh, yeah,
right?
absolutely.
But it put it in perspective that based on some other folks, we were poor. We maybe not as poor as some, but we were poor. At the end of the day, I think what is hurting, especially African Americans, is this generational gap, and is this kind of not training, not teaching, not opening the doors. And even here at the church, I got some people who, they say we need help on ministries, but then sometimes when young people come around, they don't really mean they need help.
No.
They don't really mean it. And so now the young people don't come back to do the work because it's like, well, why? All y'all did was tell me what to do. I had a suggestion I wasn't even listened to.
Right.
And I remember when I've only belonged to 2 churches in my life. I remember when I left my first church, and it was based on generational gap. It was it really, really was. I had went into the Air Force. I came home from the Air Force. I got a family. I'm working now, and they still thought I was like a kid, and it just didn't work. It just didn't work. It was a benefit, thank the Lord. Now let me say this: it was a move of the hand of God. It was. I do not regret a move by the hand of God. But I think that generations, again, if we humble ourselves, I think we just do better together.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's not a competition.
It really isn't, but some people think it is. It's like these young people, and the young people are saying these old people. And in the middle, we're losing so much ground. And we brought this up because we were just talking, but even last week, where, like I said, I'm kind of an introvert, I got on the meeting with the ministers.
Yeah.
I needed to be there. I need to be more present. So I'm not the individual who wants to ride this out until I die. Yeah, I'm not that guy. I'm not the guy who it's mine. It's no. I want to bring up other people.
Yeah,
to do what I've done, but to do it better and take it further.
And I think, like you said last night, I think we take that scripture, faithful unto death, too seriously. Yeah. And it means faithful to God unto death, not to the work. But especially in the black church, and I think, like you said, that emotional attachment to certain assignments or titles is because most times, that was the only place our previous generations got a title. So you were lower class, or you were just a janitor Monday through Friday, but then at church, you're chairman of the deacon board.
Right.
You're the assistant pastor. You're the bishop. You're this on Sundays, but Monday through Friday, hey, go over there and get that trash.
Right.
So you did begin to get that entitlement in the church, or other cultural organizations. So now you feel, I'm the president of the block club, and so now I can now dictate. And then, so now, like you said, now 30, 40 years later, when the new generation is coming, it's like, oh no, I'm not giving this up because this is all I have. Right.
Well, you know what? And I'll read some of the comments. Veronica Ivy says, work ethic is poor. Lisa Jenkins says, great topic, Pastor. I did 32 years following my example. Owen Steed says, there seems to be a sense of entitlement with our youth. And Veronica Ivy says, gatekeeping. And I agree with most of those comments. Where we've been blessed here at the church, I remember Brother Brock, and you all wouldn't remember Brother Brock, but Brother Brock was the head of the ushers when I came in. Brother Brock was a senior then, a senior. Mm-hmm. Brother Brock just one day said, I'm sitting down. He was like Forrest Gump.
I'm done.
He said, I'm done. And he literally said, let these younger people. Mm-hmm. Then Peggy became the head of the ushers. And then Peggy said, okay, I'm done. Deacon Swain, who was a charter member, who is still here at this church, Deacon Swain could have been the chairman of the deacons forever.
Yeah.
Nobody was going. They love Deacon Swain. I love Deacon Swain.
To this day.
It was Deacon Swain who was like, nah, this how you talk. Nah, Pastor, I'm going to sit down and let some of these young people go. And he did.
He sure did.
But he's not sitting there like a bitter man.
Right.
He helps the chairman. He talks to the chairman. He pulled the chairman's coattail.
Absolutely.
Now, Fitz, Fitz, Fitz is my age. They gonna kill me. So Fitz talk like this. He talk real fast. Fitz talk a mile a minute.
Oh, absolutely.
And Swain is just like, yeah. And I would say, honestly, those are the examples.
Absolutely.
That when I look at generations and how they work together and what has been the results, I can say this now publicly. You know, True Bethel was buying a new church in Niagara Falls, and I looked yesterday at the members meeting, and there was all these generations there.
Absolutely.
But it was like almost every vote we've ever taken in this church, it was unanimous.
Absolutely.
And it was because of, I think, the inner workings, talking with each other, learning from each other. I you know, there's a lot of reels out there of pastors yelling at musicians and all that kind of stuff, or yelling at choirs. And this past Sunday, praise team was getting real weak during the 4 o'clock service. They was like, they saw what they're supposed to sing when I baptize somebody. Amen, amen, Well, they started going, ooh. Ooh. So I said, all right, praise team, you're getting a lot weak. And then I followed it up because I have a relationship with them.
Absolutely.
And it wasn't a disrespectful moment.
Absolutely.
And everybody laughed. But I have seen where people my age will say things when they have the mic to younger people that you go like, hold it. You know, just lean back off that a little bit.
Yeah, and I do think, and I remember there was this other, wrong camera. There was this other time, and I was in one of my other OG's backyard, and you know, he works in a bank, so there was a lot of his bank people are there from all generations, like you said. Yeah. And I remember this girl, she made a statement, and she said, one of the bigger issues is we have to stop generalizing people. And because even in this conversation, sometimes what ends up happening, I see people in their comments, it's because we had a bad experience with one young person. Now it's, none of the young people want to grab it, so now I don't talk to any of them. Or I had a bad experience with a seasoned person, and so now they can't tell me anything. But then the next person is like, oh no, I like what you're doing. Think about this, and you're like, oh, I don't want to hear that, because now we've done generalized across the generations, and that's unfair.
Absolutely. May Bynum says, we have to learn. Why do I take off my glasses and squint? Why? We have to learn to talk to our young people, not talk at them, listen to their view of mindset, have an open mind for our children. And I think she's definitely on point. But it does take both sides opening up. So we talked about today about even our topic may be a little bit unfair, generational wars. But I do believe that there are some generational wars. But I think that at the end of the day, young people need to be mentored. Young people need to be open to mentoring so that we can move further ahead. I think if we had talks with young people about retirement, had talks about pensions, had talks about savings, had talks about all of these things, keeping your credit up. Don't go out and charge up something you can't pay for. If you lose your job, make sure you're paying your bills and all that kind of stuff. I think that we would be better off, and I'm not saying we're bad, because we do, you're right, Mark, we do overly generalize everything. But there are some young people out there who do respect the baby boomers. There's some baby boomers out there who do respect the Z's and the X's and trying to figure out the alphas, I guess, because they don't even know what they are. We don't even know how they gonna turn out. Yeah, they AI babies, which is gonna be a whole nother. When I say a whole, I'm just gonna tell y'all this. I needed somebody to do so much, you know, like a full-time secretary. I really, at this point, don't need a full-time secretary, because at the end of the day, I can scan my own documents into a file. I don't need somebody to go through the file anymore and write your own letters and do whatever. It's crazy.
I love it.
Use it to your benefit, not to your detriment. Hey, listen, everybody. I want to thank Hobson's, the Doctor of Dry Cleaning, and I don't have a sheet today, and Brian K. Lewis Funeral Home for their sponsorship. I'll throw it over to the station, and they can pay the real bills with the real commercials. Thank you to everybody who is online. We'll see you next week. No, that's church. Until next week. I was about to say, Lord willing. Until next week, power to the people.